My name is Emily Smith, and I have the honor of being the owner of Adored Boutique. I also have the honor of sharing with you a little bit about my journey into obedience, because it's a hard one to enter into. So several years ago, I was 18, 19 years into my nursing career, and I was feeling frustrated with that. I wanted something more. I wanted something that I could glorify God in. My family and I went on spring break in April of 2015. And while we were there, we went shopping. I walked into a boutique, and it was a philanthropic boutique. And it was while I was in there that I had a Holy Spirit encounter. He filled me with this tremendous joy. And I loved being in that space. I didn't want to leave. And then he used my husband to just affirm this joy in me by working in his heart. He suggested that I ask about franchising. And that was so outside of my box. I never had worked in retail, and so I was uncomfortable with that. So we just kind of shoot it up. And a couple weeks later, I was in Cuba on a mission trip, and God used 3 or 4 Cuban women and a couple women who were on the trip with me to speak truth into my heart while I was there. And he took the restlessness that I was feeling about my career, and he transformed it into joy and excitement. And by the time I left that trip, I knew that I was supposed to be changing my career, that I was going to be opening a women's boutique, and that he had a purpose in it. And so I left just completely excited about this new opportunity, about this new thing that he's put in my heart. And I went home and I shared it with my husband, and he celebrated with me, and we began a journey together of understanding what it was that God had. And so it was about 6 months before I heard the Lord again, before I heard another direction from him about what it was that I was doing. And in those 6 months, I was praying, I was seeking, I was fasting, I was trying to be obedient to the things that he was calling me to and understand what it was that he wanted. And that was a difficult part, because that was a part where he was touching parts of my heart and showing me things about my life that he needed me to transform, that he needed to transform in me before I could take on a ministry, before I could take on something new that he had ordained for me. And so he did a tremendous work in my heart during that time, and it was painful, it was scary, and it was humbling. And so 6 months later, we're at church over Christmas, and we're singing "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him." And it was through an experience I had with him in that song that I understood that he had named this new business Adored, and that it was purposeful, and that he wanted to make sure that every woman who came in contact with it could have an experience with him like I did in the other store, where she would know a little bit more about how adored she is by her creator. And so we took a hold of that name and we established it, and I started seeking what it was that I was selling, and the Lord spoke to me again. He was so specific with me during this time. And he shared with me that I couldn't be selling things that were made by people who weren't respected. And so then, in obedience to that, I stepped out to learn. I had to understand, what did that mean? What does it mean in terms of the fashion industry and in terms of the apparel industry? What does that mean for me? What can I sell? And he started teaching me about human trafficking and about the way that people are treated all over the globe in the fashion industry, in sweatshops and labor trafficking. And he started breaking my heart about that and called me to do something about it. Started to show me that Adored is about doing something about that. And so in obedience to that call, I accepted his request that we give 15% each month. His request that we buy only from places where people are respected. And his request that I start engaging with local organizations who are doing work to rescue and restore women and children out of exploitation. And that was hard, because it's hard information to learn. There's no place in our brains for it. And so while I was stepping out in obedience and all of those things, God was transforming my heart. He was transforming my way of thinking. He created a new in me, and he changed the way I perceive all of those circumstances. He changed my lenses. And so the obedience in that phase, in that entire process, while it was difficult, while there was new learning, while there was stuff that I had to do that made me uncomfortable. I look back at it now as we're a year into Adored, and I am so grateful for the way God transformed my thinking. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that He gave me to walk in obedience.